Alistair, great to chat again. You've discovered further high-grade rare earths both north and south of your Kangankunde project in Malawi. Now, Kangankunde's central carbonatite is a large rare earths mineral resource estimate in its own right. What's behind your strategy to continue exploration activities beyond this?
Well, first of all, as I said in Indaba in the presentation, it wasn't very hard to find Kangankunde. It's a large hill, stretches over about 800 metres. It rises 200 metres over the surrounding plain. And that's where we started our exploration activities and our resource development. And that's where our resource statement comes from. That's 261 million tonnes at 2.2%. To the north and south of it, there were these knolls, these rising hills that were quite prominent. And it was quite obvious there was some carbonatite mineralisation in that. We were focused on the resource drill program. We left these prospects to the end of the program. When we had some time, we decided to go and do some mapping, do some sampling, and see what the tenor and the nature of the mineralisation was in the north and the south knoll. And these are the results from those exploration rock chip samples.
Thanks, Alistair. Now, as you've mentioned, the project is already underpinned by high NdPr ratio, excellent grade and non-radioactive material. Are those characteristics consistent with these latest results?
Indeed they are. And we have to put in context, they are grab samples, they're rock chips, and they're particularly high grade, so they're selective in their nature. But the indication is that the NdPr ratio is certainly consistent with Kangankunde. I think there was one at 16, but most of them are 20, 21, maybe 22, 23% of NdPr ratio in relation to total rare earth oxide. So very similar and looking like that they are indeed genuine resources that we could potentially develop in the future. So the thing about the North Knoll is that it's slightly separated from Kangankunde by a saddle where there's some lots of alluvial material. I don't know whether it's necessarily connected or not, but there's certainly opportunity for discovery of whether that is a consistent linear feature. The South Knoll is certainly connected to Kangankunde. It's almost attached to the southern extent of what we think is mineralised, remembering that there's a gap of about 500 or 600 metres of material which is altered, which we think is mineralised, that we haven't drilled before we get to the southern knoll. So what it tells us is that the endowment of this complex is significant. There's a lot more mineralisation to be found if we wanted to do it.
Thanks, Alistair. Now, understand that while exploration is underway, in parallel, you continue to proof up the project by way of a feasibility study for stage 1 development. How's that tracking?
The team issued tenders for construction of a process plant in December, with those tenders to be returned by the end of January, which has been completed. We're actually seeing through some of those scope of works at the moment, and the team's actually going through the stages of finalising who would be the preferred contract tenderer. So that's well advanced at this point in time. The assays from last year's program, the 4,000 metre program, we've had some delays in that. We'll have some assays due soon. There'll be further assays towards the end of February, maybe the beginning of March. So we're on track for a definitive feasibility study sometimes towards the end of March. It might fall over a little bit after the Easter break. There's a fair bit of work to do, but we're on track at the moment. And certainly the costs we're seeing for the first stage plant is in line with our expectations.
And just finally, Alistair, you were in attendance at Indaba earlier this month. Can you just give us a feel for the sentiment of the conference, some of the parties you might have engaged with, and how do they regard Kangankunde and Lindian as one of the next rare earths miners?
Indaba is a great conference because it brings in service providers with the finance community into one event. We had a lot of interest from service providers who clearly understand that we are going to be in construction and operations in the very near term. So there was a lot of interest from service providers. The finance industry were all over us too, because they know that in our timeline that we're not too far away from both construction and very shortly operations. And I'll be able to articulate that timeline within the next couple of months once that feasibility study is completed. But I think shareholders will be delighted with the time frame and the nature of the scope of works, the capital costs, plus the operating costs that I'm seeing and feeling at this point in time. That I obviously need to do some more work on to get to a definitive stage. But there was a lot of interest in this company and this project because this is the next producing rare earth project in the world.
Thanks, Alistair. Appreciate you joining me and all the best.
Thank you very much.